A visit to this building, the National Archives in London, always turns up a surprise or two, and last month the surprise was flogging. Here's the item I'd requested to see. It's a hefty collection of Colonial office documents from the 1870s and 1880s, discussing a wide range of issues from around the British Empire. I'd ordered it to read a paper on sanitation in Hong Kong, but found it also contained this. It's a collection of correspondence between Governor Hennessy and the Colonial Office in London discussing flogging in Hong Kong, and we can see it covers the years 1877 down to 1879. Here's Governor Hennessy in caricature, Sir John Pope Hennessy to give him his full title, and here he is in photo form. He landed in Hong Kong on Sunday 22nd of April 1877. And we can see he didn't waste much time in sharing his views with London. He starts off with a visit to the Hong Kong jail. He writes, "The building stands in the centre of the town of Victoria, being bounded on three sides by Chancery Lane, Old Bailey Street and Arbuthnot Road, and on the fourth side by the magistrates' offices and the central police station. Several of those old jail buildings are still standing. They form part of the Tai Kwun compound today, but if we head back to an older map, this is pretty much how it would have looked in Hennessy's time. So here are the prison buildings. Up the top we've got the police station, and down the side the magistrates building here. We've got Old Bailey Street, Chancery Lane across the top, and this is Arbuthnot Road down the right hand side. He notes that the male Europeans had separate cells while the male Chinese prisoners were in associated cells. Now, at that time, separate had a special meaning. The separate system was used in British prisons and meant that prisoners were kept separate from each other. There was no communication allowed between prisoners. It was meant to give the prisoner time to reflect on their mistakes and reform themselves, but in practice it turned out to be a recipe for mental illness. Chinese prisoners were in associated cells, meaning more than one person in a cell. Hennessy writes he saw up to 7 men in a cell, but that during a busy period the previous year there'd been up to 9 men in one cell. The only toilet arrangements were a shared bucket, so unsurprisingly, Hennessy writes, on proceeding to enter some of these cells, I found the air so fetid I had to step back. Now often I find it's the little side details in this report that are just as valuable as the main text. So here, Hennessy attaches a list of all the prisoners who were in Ward A2 on a given day. So we got a snapshot of who was in prison, how the cells were arranged, and just a brief overview of what sentences had been given to them. Quite a range. So in number 14 cell, for example, this is one of the crowded cells with 7 people in. It says they're old offenders, which I think probably means re-offenders rather than their age, and these two are in for a fairly short sentence, 4 months of hard labour. You contrast that with cell number 23 down the bottom here. These are men in for a long time. I guess PS is prison sentence, and they're in for up to 20 years. Hennessy's next letter to London on the subject focuses on flogging, an excessive use of the lash as he describes it, and that will be the theme for the rest of this document. Flogging was the most severe form of corporal punishment used in Britain at the time. It was used in the army, used in the navy as shown here, and also as a punishment given out by courts. The flogging was given with what was called a cat of 9 tails. These are knotted, and when they hit the prisoner's back, they would cut into the skin, causing wounds that could take several weeks to heal and would leave lifelong scars. Here in Hong Kong, flogging was carried out as a public spectacle. Notices of upcoming floggings were placed in the local newspapers, and the flogging happened at a public whipping post near to the Harbour Master's office. If we come back to the map, we can see that shown over here. Now on this map, this is an 1882 map, it shows Western Market just down here to the south. Today the building we call Western Market is up here, which I'll show you on the... So this is Western Market today. This is where the trams make the sharp turns. So the Harbour Master's office over in Shangwan. Hennessy sends what seems to be an endless stream of letters and pages of supporting evidence. But if we summarise them, he's just making a few points. There's too much corporal punishment, and it was actually causing serious crime to increase. Punishment shouldn't be carried out in public, as it contradicts the civilised image that the British were hoping to project, and that using the cat to flog a prisoner's back caused two problems. First, it left scars that were hard to hide, and so ex-criminals couldn't ever return to normal society. And he also believed that the Chinese body reacted differently to Europeans, and that flogging a Chinese man's back could cause phthisis in the lungs, what we call tuberculosis today. So overall, corporal punishment should be reduced, and if it was absolutely necessary, Hennessy wanted to stop flogging prisoners with the cat and beat the prisoners' buttocks with a stick instead. So it takes a while, but after several months we finally get the response from London, from the Earl of Carnarvon, which is this gentleman, Henry Herbert, Earl of Carnarvon and Secretary of State for the Colonies. Now it's all exceptionally polite, but I think Hennessy is being given a ticking off. See what you think. The receipt of a large number of separate dispatches dealing not always finally or in any distinctly explained connection with different portions of a subject or with isolated cases is, I am compelled to say, embarrassing, and leaves me in doubt how far at any moment I have your views completely before me. Which I read as, I'm a busy man, I've got all the colonies of the British Empire to look after, so don't waste my time with all these pages and pages, just give me a summary and your proposed solution. Point 11 over the next page is another long-winded rebuke. Short version is that you don't just turn up somewhere new and immediately want to change everything. For goodness sake, talk with the local people first to understand the reasons why things are the way they are. He then goes on to pick apart Hennessy's observations as to the increase of serious crime in Hong Kong, analysing the figures in several different ways to show that no trend of increasing crime could actually be seen. He also doubts there's any connection between flogging and tuberculosis and asks Hennessy to get independent advice on this. Finally, he notes that Hong Kong should be treated differently from other British colonies because it was next door to China. He says that in China, painful physical punishments were commonly used, and if Hong Kong's punishments were too lenient, he worried that a wave of criminals would descend from China to take their chances there. There is at last one point he agrees with Hennessy, that's that corporal punishment should happen in private and not as a public spectacle. Now that finally seems to have cooled Hennessy's excitement about the subject, because after sending several documents a month, there's a gap of almost 10 months, and then simply this confirmation that he's passed on the message that public flogging is to stop. 7 months later, we get the last documents in this set, which are the results of the independent investigations into a link between flogging and tuberculosis, and they say that no clear link was found. So what did the people in Hong Kong make of all this? Well, we get to see at least what the European community thought. First up, we have an editorial in a newspaper from the same year as that last report, 1879. If Mr. Hennessy has committed any grievous mistake in his administration of this colony, we sincerely believe it has been in his tamperings with flogging. His greatest blunder was to suspend floggings in public. Another error was the mitigation of the severity of the punishment. The abolition of public flogging was a most serious blunder because it gave rise to the impression among the criminal class that the dreaded punishment of flogging had been altogether suspended. To what degree the wave of crime that has recently terrified this colony was raised and encouraged by this unfortunate act of His Excellency can never be ascertained. However, it wasn't the only response. Here's another editorial, a different editor, different newspaper, and writing in 1882 as Hennessy prepared to leave Hong Kong. Sir John Pope Hennessy will probably leave for England by tomorrow's mail. The abolition of a public whipping post and public flogging are not the least meritorious acts of His Excellency's useful career. He can truly say that he leaves Hong Kong better than he found it in almost every important respect, and that is a proud boast which will no doubt be readily admitted and properly appreciated by Her Majesty's government. So it's clear there was quite a wide range of reactions, and that Hennessy's changes were far from universally accepted. He certainly didn't get to put an end to corporal punishment, as flogging with the cat wasn't abolished until the 1950s, and beating with the rattan cane carried on even longer, only abolished in 1990. If you'd like to know more, I can highly recommend this book. It traces how punishment changed over the years in colonial Hong Kong, explaining the reasons behind those changes and how they fit into the bigger picture of crime and policing and the local legal system. The next time you're in Stanley, you could also visit the Correctional Services Museum, or while in Central, just take the escalator up to Tai Kwun, where you can see some of the prison buildings that Hennessy described. I'll put links to more information about all of these in the comments below. Now back to the Colonial Office document, and the next document in the volume is the one that I was actually interested in, Mr. Chadwick's reports on the sanitary condition of Hong Kong. But we'll save Hong Kong sewers and sanitation for a future video. So we'll wrap up the video here. Thank you very much for watching.